Everybody knows it was you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Sue Ruff, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Broome, Tioga County. Welcome tonight. Thank you very much for braving the nasty weather of February to come tonight. My job tonight is to introduce our moderator, Dr. Stan Scobie. Professor Scobie retired from Binghamton University in 2003, and since 2008, he has been involved professionally with issues of regulatory policy regarding shale gas and energy policy. In 2009, he helped the League of Women Voters of New York become involved in the natural resource issues around development of shale gas in New York, and helped the League write formal comments to the proposed Supplemental Generic Environmental Analysis, the SGEIS, for horizontal high-volume hydrofracture development of shale gas in New York. And Stan's going to introduce our speakers tonight.
So you heard the mouthful when Sue tried to pronounce quickly what we're talking about. The title here is, Can Your Town Ban Fracking? And the first thing I want to do is define fracking for this purpose. And it's the definition, I think, that most people, most common definition. And there's confusion out there about that term. So the definition we'll use here is, fracking is all of the activity involving drilling pad construction, drilling per se, high volume, horizontal, hydraulic, slick water fracturing, flaring, and fluid flowback of large horizontal shale wells. The point being that there's no fracturing without drilling. There's no drilling without building a drilling pad, and there's no production of gas without fluid flowback. So it's a package deal. You can't entirely separate all of these things. The highly technical definition refers to it's called hydraulic fracturing. It's referring to a very short period of time when the fluids in the well bore are subject to immense pressure to open cracks in the shale formation. So fracking is, we're using it here, is everything involving these big, heavy wells, horizontal wells. Now, second thing for housekeeping, can your town ban fracking? What we're going to talk about is mostly the can rather than the why. The why is, there's been a lot of information about why you should do this. It's around, it'll be talked about. We'll touch on it briefly, but that's not the purpose here. The purpose is, can towns do it? And it's partly a legal issue and partly a political issue. Those are the two parts that our presenters will be talking about. So let me point out that towns can ban and do ban all sorts of things and activities for all sorts of reasons. For example, my town of Binghamton, which is on the border south of here, has banned windmills. That ban has been in place for a number of years. There's some reasons for that. Some are good, some are bad. And at the moment, the proposal to build a pet crematorium in the town is drawing full house crowds at hearings. So these are examples of what towns can and sometimes do ban. Another example is a town in New Jersey has a ban on new home building lots that are smaller than 10 acres. Around here, 1 to 3 acre minimums, rural houses are the norm. And presumably in that town, the idea is to reduce sprawl and maybe favor rich upscale housing. Who knows why they did it? Point being, lots of different concerns, lots of different things get banned. So talking about banning fracking is not an unreasonable thing to do. And just to put a closure on that, the point I would make is most people don't choose to live next to a heavy industrial site, to factory farms, things like that. Some of the well sites, most of the big horizontal well sites are heavy industrial projects that go on for many years. Now, in New York, there's something called home rule. Many of you've heard about that. The principle is that municipalities, the parts of the government closest to residents, have substantial powers to make and administer laws and rules that define how they'll be governed. At the moment, New York towns are allowed to ban fracking. However, this has been challenged, and that's what Attorney Deborah Goldberg will talk about tonight. The status of that of the law, what the law says, doesn't say from her point of view, of course. And she is the lead attorney defending one of the challenges in the town of Dryden. Third point, are other towns doing this? Or is it just happening here or there? Over 100 towns have adopted in New York formal bans and moratoria. There are similar bans and moratoria in several other states, gas shale states, Colorado, Ohio, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and a de facto ban in Dallas, Texas. 1,500-foot setback that is just about equivalent to saying you can't drill a well because of the proximity of the population density setback from residences. In Broome County, here, the majority of towns and villages have adopted resolutions that are often interpreted as welcoming fracking. Some people refer to them as the Frack Me resolutions. I want to say a little bit more about that. But first, I want to point out these towns, these municipalities represent about 35% of the county's population. A number of big towns have not adopted these resolutions. I was told by the president of the Association of Towns that these resolutions are not intended to welcome fracking, but rather to support the New York administration in their rule-making process. I found it interesting. All the Broome support resolutions, almost all, were passed quickly within the space of a couple of weeks, and there was little or no public participation. That's in very sharp contrast to towns in other counties which have passed bans and moratoria. They all held numerous public meetings before the town boards voted to either accept or reject. So it was a very visible and public process. So our second speaker, Attorney Joe Heath, will be discussing the politics of developing a ban resolution in a town, the specifics. How would you do it if you decided you wanted to do it and it was legal to do it? The last point is pure housekeeping. Q&A is going to be on 3x5 cards. There will be people circulating around with cards, so if you need a card, you want to write a question, hold up your hand, you'll get a card and probably a little golf pencil if you don't have a pen. The way I'm going to do this is I won't edit or censor any questions. That is, I'm going to read them all. The principle being there are no dumb questions, which I very strongly believe in. And to make this fair, what I'll do is as I get into questions, I'll shuffle the card deck so that all questions have an equal opportunity of being asked. And I think, given the time we have and the size of the audience, we'll have plenty of time. We will try to answer every single question.